We have a really good speaker for you today. You guys have about 4 or 5 more months before you're going out into the job field or college. One thing I wish I knew before leaving high school is what do I need to know as far as if I'm going to college, where should I be looking for a degree? Or if I'm not going to college, where are some good growth opportunities, jobs in the area that can help me meet my future goals? Today, speaking with you is Sean Kelly. He works with the Partners for Competitive Workforce, and they know exactly what jobs are available in the greater Cincinnati area and what jobs are good degrees to get into to get those jobs. Does anybody know why there's not a degree in President of the United States? Why can't you go to college and get a degree for President of the United States? Any ideas? Because there's one job, right? There's one job. There's a lot of degree opportunities, though, that they still offer that there's probably not a lot of carrying capacity for that type of job. So it's important for you guys to know, if you are going to college, what are those degrees to get into. All right, so let's please welcome Mr. Sean Kelly.
Thank you. My name is Sean Kelly. Partners for Competitive Workforce is our organization. And we come out of an organization called the United Way of Greater Cincinnati. Has anyone ever heard of United Way? Just raise your hand if you've heard of United Way for anything. Okay, so United Way, we cover about 15 counties in southwestern Ohio, southeastern Indiana, and northern Kentucky. And United Way of Greater Cincinnati raises about $63 million a year through very generous companies and individuals who want to help the community in which they live. So all the largest companies in this region help raise money for the United Way. And then what our job is at United Way is we take that money and we go out and do programming in the community. And we help with education and workforce development and literacy issues and child care issues and things like that around this 15-county community. So I'm here today specifically here with you guys at Goshen to talk about what you all are going to do when you walk out of this campus in a few months. Now, for some of you, you have a very clear idea of what that is already. There are some of you sitting there right now who know exactly what you want to do and why you want to do it. For others, if you're like I was in high school, you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm just ready to do whatever's next. I've had a good time here in high school, but I'm ready for the next challenge, the next adventure, whatever that is. My goal for you today is that I want you to at least begin to think, if you haven't already, again, I'm sure many of you have, if you haven't already, to begin to think of not only what are you going to do after you graduate from here, but why you are going to do that. So when I was in high school, we were all told we all needed to go to college. Everyone had to go to 4-year college, and that was how everything was judged. What no one told us, though, is why we were going. What was the purpose of going? Was it just because it looked good for all of us to go to 4-year college? Or was it because there was a very specific reason? So my entire career working with high schools all over this whole region is to get students to understand why they're going to take that next step. To me, to your teachers, your counselors, your parents, I would venture to say that we are not as concerned about what you're going to do as to why you made the decision to do it. Some of you will choose to go into the military. Some of you will choose to go right to work. Some will choose to go to 2-year colleges. Some will choose to go to 4-year colleges, and there may be some other things that people decide to do. All of those are potentially the exact right path for you. The only person who is going to know that and continue to learn about that is all of you sitting here. So why am I here today and why does Partners for a Competitive Workforce, what do we do? Partners, we cover 5 sectors across Greater Cincinnati. And we work with these 5 sectors because we know we've done the research that show that the most jobs and the highest quality jobs are in the 5 following areas: advanced manufacturing, construction, healthcare, IT, and supply chain logistics. Those 5 areas are what we focus on at PCW. Now, right away I'll have people say, well, what about if I want to be an accountant, or I want to be an attorney, or I want to be name another career? Those are all wonderful careers. We're not telling you not to do those. Our job, though, is to serve the largest number of people, and the way we do that is by explaining those 5 key economic sectors in this region. So again, it's healthcare, IT, advanced manufacturing, construction, and supply chain logistics. Not only do those areas have the most jobs in this region, they also have the highest quality, highest paying jobs in this region. So as a number and as a percentage, those fields will prepare the largest number of the future workforce to have careers that you can sustain a very comfortable life. Okay, does that part make sense? So that's why we focus on those areas. We don't try to cover every area. We focus on those 5 specific ones. So the good news, what I've learned about Goshen, is that you already have many things in place that are connecting you to those 5 areas. How many, just with a show of hands, how many are already participating in one of the internships that you can do while a student here at Goshen? Is anybody in this room doing one of the internships? Okay, I see a few hands. A few tentative, shy hands. That's all right. More of you. Let me just be blunt. More of you need to do those. You guys, that is an amazing opportunity that most high schools in this region do not have. The students at most high schools do not have that opportunity. Do not let that opportunity pass you by. According to Mr. Edwards, I understand that there's still a chance that you can do those between now and graduation. Do it. Just do it. Find the time, pick an area, make an appointment with your counselor or with Mr. Edwards, and talk about those internships. What are they going to do for you? First of all, it's going to get you into a professional environment. It's going to allow you to meet professionals and see how for lack of a better term, the real world works, and see what it's like in a day in one of those companies, or healthcare facilities, or manufacturing plants, whatever it is. It's an amazing opportunity. Plus, it will inform you as you decide what you're doing beyond Goshen of, oh, actually I went and I did an internship at the healthcare spot, and I now know that that is not for me. Right? That's information that you will then have from your own experience of doing it. You cannot replace that. Save yourself the time, save yourself the money of going down a path and paying a school or an apprenticeship program or some type of certification program. Save yourself the time and money now. You can have that experience while still a student at Goshen for free. Take advantage of it. And I don't know how many they can do, Mr. Edwards. I'm sure you will tell them that. But if I were you, and if you had siblings or friends who are younger than you, I would tell them to take advantage of as many of those as possible. For 20 hours, you get to experience what it could be like to work in that field. That will go a long way to helping you make very good decisions about what type of school you want to do after Goshen, or what type of work environment you want to work in. Okay? So, that's my last commercial for those. But it's really, really important. And there aren't many high schools around who even have that opportunity. Okay, so that's good news, number 1. Number 2, and I say this to every high school that I go to in the region. Number 2, really good news for all of you, is that this region is growing and continue to attract companies from all around the world. But guess what? The good news for all of you sitting out here is that these companies and this region needs you. They need you. Every single one of you sitting out here today, they need to allow them to continue to grow so that they can get bigger, so that they can become more profitable, and in turn, they become a larger part of our community. There is not a business that I meet with who is not struggling, seriously struggling with trying to find good people to hire. So, unlike a lot of times in our history where some of us came out of school and there were no jobs because there was an economic downturn or whatever the situation may be, you guys are in the exact opposite position. I was just in a room this morning with DHL and Amazon, who have enormous operations at the airport. They cannot hire enough people. We were setting up an internship program, actually an apprenticeship program, with a high school as a pilot project to get 18-year-old seniors who actually will be able to work during their senior year, second semester, as they begin taking classes for a 2-year associate's degree, either at Gateway or at Cincinnati State. But the whole entire time that they're going to be going to school, they're going to actually be making money and getting experience at either DHL, UPS, or Amazon. It's just a pilot right now. It's just a few kids that we're going to experiment with it this second semester right now with 2 schools. But that's something that we hope to spread because these companies are looking for people just like you. And it's not one area of expertise or one area of jobs that they have. They have jobs that cover every part of the 5 areas that I just spoke about. Because these are enormous international companies that need people all around the world, while they also need people right here at the Greater Cincinnati Airport. Okay, does that part make sense? So, 2 things so far. You guys are in a great spot because you're sitting at Goshen, who has an amazing opportunity with the internship program. And number 2, outside of the walls here at Goshen, there are companies lining up to try to attract you to work for them. The decisions you have to make with your teachers, with your counselors, with your families are, how do you want to get there? Do you want to begin to work for them as soon as you graduate from Goshen? Do you want to begin to work for them as a part of a 2-year program where maybe they can help pay for your school and you earn money while going to school, going for an associate's degree? Or do you know that you want to get a certain degree after maybe talking to some of these companies that you could be interested in, and you want to just go right into a 4-year program that will, upon graduation, and maybe you do an internship over the summer, or you try to do a co-op. If you go to certain colleges in the area, they offer co-ops to give you experience of working while you're going through college. And then upon your bachelor's degree, then you go to work for that company. Those are all possibilities and all things that you need to think about. All of the areas, the companies that Mr. Edwards was telling me about, Tata Consultancy. Tata is an enormous Indian company that has operations across the globe. You have, I think it was Beacon Orthopedics was one of the companies, and a few others that he mentioned. All of the companies that you have out here that you can already do internships with are companies that we work with closely, who are trying to find future workforce just like you guys. So, a couple of things that you can do. If there is healthcare, if you're thinking about healthcare, that is probably, and actually I think I just read late last week or early this week, I forget, too many snow days, too many schedule craziness with all this weather. But I read an article that for the longest time, probably for the last 10 years, healthcare was consistently found by Gallup and those kinds of organizations who survey workers. Healthcare was continually the #1 profession chosen by people who were happy with their jobs and were, felt good about what they did every day at work. But what I just read, what I just actually replaced it, were software developers. Software developers. So whether you're looking at healthcare, whether you're looking at IT, whether you're looking at advanced manufacturing, construction, or supply chain, all of those possibilities, all of those jobs, which we lump together and call them STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, math jobs, all of those jobs have a very high rate of employee contentment, employee happiness. And why do you think that is? Most of those jobs are people solving problems every single day. And usually those people are solving problems for other people. They're getting paid to come up with a solution for other people. That's why those jobs tend to have such a high rate of contentment. Now, let me just go down a few of those sectors and explain, because probably the one that I get the most questions about, and does anyone know what I mean when I talk about supply chain or logistics? Does anyone want to take a guess? Supply chain or logistics? You don't have to. It's a big room. I get it. Okay, so supply chain and logistics, look at it this way. Has anyone here ever heard of the company Procter & Gamble? Procter & Gamble, okay, see lots of hands. Procter & Gamble, one of their most famous products is Tide. It's in the news right now and all that stuff. Tide is one of their most famous worldwide brands, okay? Does anybody know where they make Tide? They make Tide all over the world, right? But for years and years and years, all of the Procter & Gamble products were made right down in St. Bernard, right off 75. You can still see it as you're just about as you're ready to drive through the city of Cincinnati. That whole Procter & Gamble plant still sits over there. All their soap, all their toothpaste, all of that was made in Cincinnati. Well, people use their toothpaste, their soap, their laundry detergent, all that stuff. They use it all over the world. Supply chain and logistics, that field gets the product from where it's made to where people consume it. So this bottle of water here, for example, it's a great example. This bottle of water probably has 10 different components to it. There's the actual water that's sourced somewhere around the world, that's collected. But the plastic bottle that it goes in isn't sitting there at the source of the water. The cap probably is made somewhere else. There's an art firm somewhere in the world who came up with the design for that label, but then they send it to a label printing company somewhere in the world, and they print those. Then there's somewhere else in the world where they actually assemble all of this together. And then there's another group that decides, how does this get shipped to every grocery store in America? That is supply chain and logistics. There are people every single day, and one of the women I was with this morning for DHL, they have people who all they do all day is come up with creative ways to get more product on one of their airplanes to be sent around the world. That's what they do at CVG. There are people who are analyzing, looking at 3D models of their airplanes and trying to figure out, how do we get more cases of Dasani water on that airplane to send to Japan or to send to Mexico or to send wherever it's going. That is supply chain and logistics. It's all of the components that come together to make a product, getting it from all those different places where they're made to where it's going. So, in that field of supply chain and logistics, there are all kinds of levels. There are top flight engineers who, there's a big company out in Mason where they engineer the factories that actually send these bottles down assembly lines. That's what they do. There are people who work inside those plants, actually doing the human part that takes place inside those plants and making sure quality control. Or they are sealing and making sure that their boxes are labeled correctly, or they are running certain components of that process. There are any number of jobs in supply chain and logistics with every product that we have. These tables were a part of a supply chain and logistics. Your backpacks, your lunch bags, everything that's in here was made one place but managed to be distributed somewhere else. That is supply chain logistics. Healthcare, obviously, that's probably the most common one and probably the most widely known. However, I would challenge you to look beyond just nursing, where everyone says, oh yeah, I know what doctors do, or I know what nurses do. Or there are so many fields, and one of the ways you can do that is by taking part in one of these internships or exploration programs. All of the hospital systems in our entire region, maybe not at every single location, but all of the hospital systems, whether it's Mercy or TriHealth or Christ or Children's, you name the hospital system in our region, they have opportunities for high school students to go and learn more about what they do. And when you get on some of these larger healthcare campuses, it's an entire universe of jobs. So they have supply chain management teams at a place like Children's Hospital. Whether you're at Liberty Campus or whether you're down at Main Campus in Clifton. They have teams of, obviously, healthcare workers that are taking care of the public, but they also have healthcare workers that take care of employees. They have childcare. They run childcare facilities for their employees. They have food service. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people work in food service at these large hospital systems, health systems. So all of those, just because it's one, you think, oh, that's healthcare. At healthcare, you're either a doctor or a nurse. There are hundreds of jobs. There are people who just interact with patients and make sure the family services, that get the care that they need and they get the services that they need. There are IT specialists who make sure that the charts that the doctors and nurses are working with when they're with the patient actually get to the right place and make sure that they get sent to the right medical officials. That's healthcare. The biggest thing with healthcare, I would tell you, though, is just to make sure what you don't want to discover years into a process is that, oh, I actually went finally to a healthcare place and I saw them draw blood from a patient and I passed out because, oh, I can't stand blood. Well, you want to make sure you know that before you spend a whole bunch of your time going down a path in education for healthcare, right? It's something good to kind of just make sure that you know about yourself. It's not good or bad. It's just who you are. And you should know that before you spend a lot of your time and your money in going down that path. So maybe you don't want to be a phlebotomist. Maybe instead you want to look at occupational therapist or physical therapist. There are differences. There's all kinds of therapists that work with patients. Okay, that makes sense. On healthcare. Any questions on healthcare? Any questions on supply chain so far? Okay. Let's go to advanced manufacturing because that is one of the largest sectors that we have in Greater Cincinnati because we are known for making so many things. So, for example, there's a Skyline right out here, right? So Skyline is a Cincinnati, it's a local restaurant. But all that food that's at your Skyline here isn't made right there. Does anyone here work at Skyline? Anyone work at that Skyline? Okay. Someone does? Okay. So whatever Skyline, they have a central place where they make that food, right? There is a central place. There's a McDonald's here too, right? But all of that food, there isn't like a whole kitchen staff back there like making that food from scratch right there, correct? It's made somewhere around the country. Skyline's made locally, but it's made somewhere around the country and through the supply chain process arrives at your restaurant for them to prepare for us to eat. So advanced manufacturing, sometimes we just think like really big things. So we have GE Aviation here, right, in Evendale on the northern part of 75 there. And they make, does anybody know what they make? GE Aviation? Airplane engines and parts that go into airplane engines. And they maintain airplane engines. So it's a pretty important part, right? The planes that we get on, they don't fly without the GE folks. So, of course, they have teams of engineers out there. That's what they do. However, just like with healthcare, they cover so many different areas as well. It's not just all engineers out there. There are people who are making parts out there. There are people who went there right out of high school and basically got their training at GE. There are people who went through 2-year programs, and then there are people who went through 4-year and then maybe even went on and got masters and doctorates, who knows? Because they're an international company. So GE Aviation, one of our largest manufacturers. We talked about Procter & Gamble already. Has anyone ever heard of Standard Textile? Standard Textile is one of the largest companies in the region that no one really knows about, but they make curtains and sheets and shower curtains and all kinds of anything that's needed for like the hospital, hotel industry. So when you go into a hotel and you see all the comforters and blankets and pillows, all that kind of stuff, that's what Standard Textile makes. All of these manufacturers are in our region. They are always looking for people who want to help create something and want to help make something, be a part of that process. So that's advanced manufacturing. Construction, let's go there, because that's another one everyone thinks they know. But construction also includes architecture, the people who design the buildings that get built, and there's many layers to construction. There are opportunities that you can take advantage of, even as a high school student, to explore what a career in construction looks like, because there are many different types of construction. Probably, we see construction as we're in our cars on the highway. That's one part of construction. But then you might go to a building site. That's another part of construction. But then there's a whole part that happens behind the scenes that isn't actually out on the construction site. Okay? Great jobs, lots of them, especially with all the building that's going on in this region. Okay, so what haven't I covered yet? I've covered healthcare. I covered, the last one, IT. And IT is probably the one that your generation is the most literally in touch with, because most of you probably have a phone at the ready every minute of the day. And unfortunately, most of us older people do as well now, too. It's something we can't get away from. The technology, the IT industry touches everything that we do. Every single thing that we do, from how we communicate with people that we work with, to people that, to family and friends, IT is a part of that. However, it's not always just about that device in your hand. There are so many factors in IT, and you could be one of those people who develops new technology, or you could be someone on the service side who actually works for a company who helps people solve problems because their PC or their Mac isn't working, or they can't figure out what's going on with some work function for their IT. Or you could also be someone who actually builds the new IT products. Those are all possibilities in the IT field. Has anyone here ever been to, there's a group in town called Inter-Alliance. It's an IT group. It covers about, there's probably 50 to 60 high schools. And every February they have a Tech Olympics. It's held in downtown Cincinnati at a hotel over a weekend, and about 600 to 700 high school kids go down there. It's all run by students. And they spend the entire weekend coding, hackathons, anything that has to do, robotics, anything that has to do in some way with IT. I think there's still a chance, if anyone in this room, you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but if you're interested in that, just Google Inter-Alliance Cincinnati and check out the Tech Olympics. Because even if you've never been there before, I would invite you just to go down and see what goes on there. These are students from grades 9 through 12 who have identified an interest in IT at some point along the way, and they get together with a bunch of other students from around the city, all these different high schools, and these kids go down. Like some of the larger high schools have teams that go and compete, but you don't have to have a team. You can just go as an individual. There are kids from Indiana, Northern Kentucky, Ohio that go there, and the kids have a great time. College kids actually kind of run it. College kids who go to UC, NKU, or Miami, they run the event over the weekend, but it really is student-led. the kids have fun, and they're surrounded by IT, and then companies come, all the largest companies in our region, so the Duke Energies and the Krogers and the Macy's and all these large companies come, and they actually talk to these kids because they want all of those kids down there, they want those kids to work for them. Because these are kids who are really involved in IT and who want a career in that. So the employers go down, and there's one afternoon where they have about a 2-hour window where kids can meet with these employers and talk about potential careers. And then what the employers usually tell the kids is, listen, what I would do is go take this program. You can work for us in the summers or work for us on Christmas break or whatever, and then we'll hire you after you graduate. Those are the actual conversations that are going on between high school kids and companies at these events. So if you're interested in that, and Mr. Edwards, at this point, I'll give my email address. He has all my contact information. There are so many groups that, whether it's healthcare, IT, advanced manufacturing, there's a group that it's called What's So Cool About Manufacturing. High schools from around the region compete against other high schools where they get partnered with a company. They go in and spend a lot of time with the company. They get a GoPro camera. They go in and film the manufacturing process. And then they put a video together, and those videos all go online, and then there's a competition where people can vote for their favorite videos. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year running that. That's going on right now. There are many opportunities, and even though you're in your 2nd semester senior year, there are still so many things you can all do. So I'll leave all that information with Mr. Edwards, and he knows how to reach me. Are there any immediate questions? Because I also know we're getting a little close to wrap-up time. Teachers back there, any questions from any of you? Or you can also ask Mr. Edwards, and we can connect you to the organizations. A few of the quick timelines. I know the Inter-Alliance, if the deadline hasn't passed, you could probably get an extension, but I think it's probably the end of this week is the deadline for that, if that is of interest to you, the Tech Olympics. Other than that, hey, thank you so much for your attention. I was telling Mr. Edwards as I was standing up here, even during the lunch, this is a really well-behaved, very attentive, quiet group of students. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you.